No, I got it. I got it. Ready when you are. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Third Rail Politics with your host, the Hippie Conservative. And I don't have my music today, folks, so I had to do my own little intro, but that's okay. We like winging it here. This is guerrilla radio. This is the stuff that comes from the basement of Flint Talk Radio, the only people crazy enough to put a guy like me on the air. And I got a lot of stuff I want to talk to you guys about today. It's very rare that it comes to a situation where I find myself absolutely just as mad as I can be. And this is one of those situations because I don't know if you guys have heard, but we had a federal judge out of California. This is the second time that this has happened. We brought this up before to you guys. This is the second time that it's happened that California is now dictating federal law to the President of the United States, to the military. We've lost the three branches of government. We are now the USC. And I'm not talking about the University of Southern California. I'm talking about we are now the United States of California. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm sure you guys have heard, and this is a deception that's being done to you guys, that they're trying to convince you that a federal judge that is nothing more than a district judge has some authority to tell you that don't ask, don't tell is unconstitutional and dictate to the United States of America whether or not we should set our military policy for our entire military complex and whether or not it's constitutional and whether or not we can have it. It's so outrageous, it's incredible. And you would not believe who this person is. I mean, she's next to nobody. All right, let me see, I got it. Okay. In Washington, D.C., okay, they released this. This is through AP. It's got titled, U.S. Judge puts global halt on don't ask, don't tell. U.S. Judge, which is accurate. A U.S. federal judge has ordered a worldwide halt to the enforcement of the Defense Department's controversial don't ask, don't tell policy. I'm sure all of you guys have heard this on the radio or on your news programs or whatever already. Putting an end to the ban on openly gay troops. U.S. District Judge Virginia Phillips' permanent worldwide injunction Tuesday orders the military to immediately suspend and discontinue any investigation or discharge, separation, or other proceedings that may have commenced under the don't ask, don't tell policy, which, by the way, okay, just as a sidebar, was put in place in 1991 by none other than Bill Clinton and was passed by both Republicans and Democrats. The judge, based in the Central District of California. Central District of California. I'm going to get into that in a second. I just want to go through this. Previously ruled that the 1993 was the proper year. Policy regarding gays served in the military violated service members' Fifth Amendment rights to due process and freedom of speech, but had delayed issuing the injunction. She actually passed this original determination in September 9th. More than 12,500 people have been booted from the military since Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which was passed by Bill Clinton, went into effect, and the Democrats. I mean, I love the way the press is just washing this. They're not even telling you that this was actually passed by Democrats and Bill Clinton. They just omit it from every one of these news reports, like they suddenly don't know where the hell this all came from. Gay rights groups, the gay rights group Log Cabin Republicans, which had sued the military, praised the ruling, but urged caution by service members considering coming out at this time, as the Obama administration has still the option to appeal. President Barack Obama is pushing for the repeal of the controversial policy formulated by former President Bill Clinton. Now, you guys may remember, about a month ago, we had a 56-42 ruling. There was two members of the Senate that abstained from it, which wasn't enough to override the threatened filibuster by the Republicans, and that they were going to try to push don't ask, don't tell to the president's desk, and it got turned down. White House Press Secretary Robert Gibbs would not comment specifically on the injunction Tuesday, but said Obama is committed to dismantling the don't ask, don't tell policy. Apparently, he is committed to it. Apparently, he's so damn committed to it that he doesn't care that some piss-ant judge, a small district judge in California, is now dictating to the government of the United States, including its military complex. The president will continue to work as hard as he can to change the law that he believes is fundamentally unfair, said Gibbs. Justice Department spokesman Tracy Schmaler would say only that the department is reviewing the ruling. The department has 60 days to appeal, but is not required to do so. So they can basically just let the ruling stand by a district court. Now, I want to just go over for a minute. It's just so incredible. In a ruling Tuesday, Phillips stated that the policy infringes on the rights of military personnel. Furthermore, there is no adequate remedy at law to prevent the continued violation of service members' rights. They have the right to be openly gay. I guess she's trying to extrapolate this from the Fifth Amendment, which is the right to not incriminate yourself. Actually, I've actually got a copy of the Fifth Amendment here. Well, I'm not going to get into that. I don't want to distract from my point here and start getting off into the Fifth Amendment. So I did a little bit of research to find out exactly who this Virginia Phillips is. She was born in 1957 as a judge of the United District Court for the Central District of California. Central District of California. Now, John, I can't tell which camera I got this on. This one here? This is Lower California, people. Lower California. So all of California stretches out here. This is the district she's in. This little piece of shit right here by the border of Mexico. The bottom of California. You see the little, actually, let's see which way I got it. Okay. That's the coast of California. I don't even know which way it goes, but it's an itty bitty little, okay, it goes like that. Itty bitty little corner of California. I looked on a bigger map. I should have brought the bigger map so you can see just how small it is. It's really like the thumbnail compared to my entire hand if that was California. That's how small this little district is. Now, get this. She is one of approximately 35 U.S. district judges serving in this little itty-bitty district. She's one of 35 U.S. district judges that serve this district, which it also includes San Diego. And this judge, this little district judge, a U.S. district judge that was appointed by Clinton, has decided that out of this little corner of California, separates herself from 35 other judges and decides that she's going to set military policy for the entire United States of America in a press release that says it's global. Suddenly this woman has decided that she has the authority. Where in the hell in the Constitution, where in the hell in anything do you get, Virginia A. Phillips, the right to tell all the people in the United States of America? Picture for a minute, people. Picture, you people on the left, take a second, breathe for a second. Think about some little district in Wichita, Kansas, run by some conservative right-wingers that are going to set the policy for education, that decide that suddenly that it's unconstitutional not to allow God into your classroom and have God be the sole way, or abstinence, or anything else that you people are opposed to, and you're going to have it dictated to you by a district in Wichita, Kansas. It's time to separate California from the rest of the United States. I say we all march down there with chainsaws, cut along the fault line, and push the damn thing away from the rest of the United States. At the very least, have California secede. It's $26 billion in debt already. At one point in time, when they had the LA riots, and they had the fires, the fires that were in lower San Francisco, and they had let me see, the riots, they had the riots and the fires and the earthquake that all happened in one year. In that year, the state of California cost the federal government more money than all the social programs in all the rest of the United States combined. That's what we're putting up with. Now, people make the argument that 1/7 of the economy of the United States comes out of California. I would dispute that very much, because you look at the GDP of California, and it isn't 1/7 of the entire GDP of the United States, so I don't know where they really get that number from. I'm imagining they're extrapolating it from the fact that they say that the money goes out, the money goes back, somebody else runs off with it. It's kind of like the way they tried to say the other day that unemployment checks bring back $1.85 for every dollar that they spend. Well, yeah, as you spend it over and over and over again, but they don't bring money back into the system. Like, say, in our state of Michigan, we got this program that's called Pure Michigan. And this is a good example of something that actually works. And what it is you have tourism dollars, and people come in from outside the state, and they bring $5 for every $1 we spend in advertising. Now, that's a real figure, because you have people from Indiana, Ohio, anywhere else. That's real economics. And that's when you find the kind of regeneration of money that you need to stimulate an economy. Handing somebody $1 in food stamps or in an unemployment check is not going to generate money. I mean, yes, it's a good thing to help people sustain, but that's not the answer to an economy that's falling apart. These people believe with all their heart that you should have your government, to get back to the point, that you should have your government now running from the state of California. This, in 1985, she became a U.S. State Magistrate Judge for the Central District of California. On January 26, 1999, Phyllis was nominated by President Bill Clinton to be a district judge for the Central seat. Now, do you remember when I was talking to you guys not too long ago about this other judge, this Walter Vaughn, who's also a district judge, who said that the gay marriage ban was unconstitutional, and therefore he said that it could no longer exist in California. The one, Proposal 9, that was voted on twice by the people of California, making it a marriage between a man and a woman. You know, keep in mind, keep one thing in mind here, people. This Virginia A. Phillips, who's operating out of this little district in California that I showed you, we did not vote for this woman. Nobody in this country, most of the people in the state of California didn't even vote for this woman. And now she's dictating whether or not we have a policy. Whether you disagree or agree with the policy of don't ask, don't tell, that's not the issue. Stay focused. That's not the issue. The issue is whether or not you want to have your government being dictated to you from California by people that you never even voted for. This is ridiculous. This is absurd. What Barack Obama ought to be saying to this woman when he addresses this issue is, I am the President of the United States, voted on by everybody in the United States of America, and I'll be damned if I'm going to be dictated to by some little piss-ant district judge out of Southern California. And if you have any guts at all, President Obama, that's exactly what you will say. Okay, now we're going to have the elections that are going to come up pretty soon, and hopefully we'll put an end to this stuff. Now I want to, I've said before, I'm a person that voted for Barack Obama. I cannot tell you, I'm like the woman Velma Hart who was talking at that town hall meeting. I'm exhausted of defending this man. I'm exhausted of his policies. I'm exhausted that he turned and said he would be beyond race, and I don't see him being beyond race at all. I mean, from the beer summit that he had immediately after he got elected, all the way up to the money that he's handing out in the streets of Detroit, $3,000 checks for people that say that they might be homeless, might not be, that you had to actually produce an address to get the money from. Every single thing that's come out of this man's mouth, even his most recent program, $48,000 to rebuild the infrastructure, that's fine. The infrastructure needs to be rebuilt. But to try to pretend that you're going to turn around this economy by giving some kind of FDR type of program. And keep in mind, FDR also never ever had anybody on his payroll that wasn't working. There was no government handouts in FDR's time. There was no Social Security. There was no nothing in FDR's time. Every person that was on the work program after the Depression, every person that was on there had to work to get their check. The only thing you got for free was soup, and that was it. So if you want to model yourself after FDR, keep that in mind, will you, Barack? Now, if you're going to have this $48 billion program, that's fine, but don't try to pretend that it's going to fix anything. Why is it that a $48 billion program is going to fix my economy now when $787 billion that you handed out in the Recovery Act didn't fix anything? We still got, right now we got a 9.6% unemployment rate. It held steady. We got lucky. They thought it was going to go up to 9.7. We're now in the 17th month of unemployment that is over 9%. Since the Great Depression, the longest that we've had is right after Jimmy Carter, when Ron Reagan came in. They had 19 months of over 9% unemployment, and this is the 17th month. If we get to the first of the year, we're going to be setting records, people. Setting brand new records. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to give you my very early and somewhat dangerous because it's really kind of early. We got, what, 3 weeks before the elections? But I'm going to give you my prediction for this November's election. With the economy showing no signs of turning around as far as jobs, the Democrats are going to bear the brunt of this punishment. The enthusiasm gap, which is the people that are showing up at the polls, every race that we've had early has shown the Republicans showing out at far greater numbers, 20-30% more than the Democrats. This is going to hurt the Democrats badly by tilting close races, and I'm talking about those that are within 5 percentage points. Where the Democrats either leading by 5 points, or and inversely, the Republicans are trailing by 5 percentage points. In those close races, they're going to all go toward the Republicans, in my opinion. Now, I want to point out something, and I don't mean to pat myself on the back, but my blog, the Hippie Conservative, before I started doing the radio show, I used to make predictions like this. I've been making predictions since 2004, and I've been accurate in every single prediction that I have made. George Bush winning, and governor races and everything, except for one race. When Jennifer Granholm here in the state of Michigan ran for re-election, I actually predicted that she would lose by 2 percentage points. She ended up winning by about 4. I made a bad mistake at that point in time. I underestimated that the women in this state would go for Jennifer Granholm, despite the fact that the economy was doing so bad. And I guess I just didn't really understand that that the women would be that committed to it, that they wouldn't want to give up. And they went out for it, and that was the only prediction that I made. And that's since 2004. We've had this 2010. That's 6 races, 6 different presidential races, and or 2 different presidential races, and this will be the second midterm race. And I've accurately predicted that and another governor race. So, and now that not to mention some of the other proposals and referendums that have come up. Every single thing. If you go on my site, it's the Hippie Conservative. You can type it into Google. You can go on to that. I've got 187 different posts that I got. You can look back at all my predictions, and every single one of them has come true. And we'll see if this one won't. Okay. Now, to get down to the actual prediction, I'm predicting that the Republicans are going to gain 50 seats. 50 seats. Now, that's a lot higher than anybody else is predicting. Most of the people are predicting between 35 and 40. Now, that's plus or minus. I'll give you plus or minus 5 seats. So, somewhere between 45 and 55 seats is the number of seats that we're going to gain, the Republicans are going to gain in the House. And that's going to give them control of the whole House. What they need right now, I believe, is 35 seats. And they're going to have complete control of the House. And then they're going to gain. Well, the Senate's going to be a little closer. It's going to be 9 or 10. Most people are saying 7 or 8, but I think it's going to be closer than that. I think if they get 10, you got to remember the Vice President's Joe Biden. If you get an even score on the Senate side, if you get an even score, so you got 50-50 on the Senate side, then you still have Joe Biden that can come in. Now you got to remember these senators don't show up every time. So sometimes it'll be that the Republicans will be able to get the control of the Senate simply because maybe a Democrat will die, you know, or maybe a Republican will die, but it'll shift back and forth. It's going to be very, very, very close. But I wouldn't rule out that they might capture it by 1. Now remember the enthusiasm gap that I'm talking about. When you're having 20-30% more Republicans showing up at the poll, you can have, and especially these independents, and I think the independents are shifting. I'm an independent myself. I represent the independents. I think of myself as somebody that speaks for the independents, one of the few radio show hosts that are out there right now that are speaking for the independents. And I can tell you that the independents are swaying Republican. I am. I spent most of the prior show that I had here before Third Rail Politics. I spent most of that show talking about how the Republicans were going to lose and the Democrats were going to take it back. The problem with us independents is that we always punish the people that are misbehaving. And it's one of the things we honestly, as fellow independents, it's something we got to learn to stop doing. However, what's happening is every time that somebody misbehaves, we come back and we punish them for misbehaving. And right now, we, the independents, people that are running about 27% of this country, are leaning heavily toward the Republicans. And that's going to be another factor that's going to turn badly against them. So I think that we'll probably maybe take the Senate. I mean, it's going to be very close. 9, 10 seats. 10 seats would make us dead even. 11 seats would mean we'd gain by 1. And I don't know that that's going to happen, but I do think that it's going to be damn close to that. Now, in the governor races, we're going to have, the governor races are going to be tilted hard toward the Republicans. The state's racked by overspending and slow growth due to bad policy. And I'm talking about the subsidized green jobs that haven't materialized. And you keep hearing how these green jobs are going to do this, the green jobs are going to do that. Michigan has had this. Our governor came in with the idea that we were going to create windmills. That we lost all our manufacturing jobs. We lost 208,000 jobs over the past 8 years. That's net. That's not 780,000 jobs, that left, but you gained back jobs. So it's 208,000 jobs net. And we're one of the few Rust Belt states that actually lost jobs. That's how bad it is. Our unemployment here is about 13%, 13.1 right now at this point in time. And we lost all those jobs, and they were going to replace those jobs with these green jobs, creating solar panels, mostly building windmills and everything else. And she went out and tried, and then she had another brilliant idea that she was going to bring the film industry. So we were going to have Flintwood instead of Hollywood. I don't know what the hell she was thinking there. But they tried to bring in more jobs for the Greens, And the net total, she was even bragging about this the other day. She created 60,000 jobs. Now that's 60,000 jobs that are created. But you got to remember when these people talk about it, and it's true with the Republicans and the Democrats, when they talk about job net gain or job gain or loss, they're never talking about the net job gain or loss. If a Republican's trying to get rid of a Democrat, they'll only count the jobs that left. So like if I left a job where I work at my university and went to another university, the Republicans would, at this point in time in Michigan, would count that as a job loss. The Democrats would count it as a job gain, believe it or not. So anyway, what we're looking at is a net gain of 9 or 10 governor races. That would mean that we'd have about 36 governorships that are now in the Republican hands. That's going to make a big difference too, because when you have governor conventions, you have governors that set state policies and everything else. It's going to lean way more toward the Republicans. Here in Michigan, Republican Rick Snyder, for those of you that are in Michigan, is going to play it safe to the finish line. He's going to easily beat Verge Bonero. I watched the debates that we had here the other day, and it looked like a wash. The media is playing heavily in favor of the Democrat, Verge Bonero. They're trying their best to try to drag him with polls. I think there's really two reasons. The media in general leans toward the Democrats anyway. It's left-stream media. But more importantly than that, I think, is that they like a tight race. I mean, this is a washout. So far, there's a 20-point gap between Rick Snyder and Verge Bonero, and I can't see any reason why they would want to have that. They want it to be a closer race. It makes better news. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about this thing that happened in New York. I want to talk a little bit about it. This guy's name is Carl Palladino, and he's running as a Republican, and he's kind of a grandfatherly type, and he's running against very much a Democrat establishment. And the Cuomo's running. And Mario Cuomo has run the governor of New York for a long time, and now he's being succeeded by his son Andrew Cuomo, and he's running for the governorship. And it's been pretty much a wash. This guy Carl Palladino, he got very close. Well, he won the primary, and he ended up being able to run against Andrew Cuomo, and it didn't look like there was a chance in hell that this guy was going to be able to beat Mario Cuomo, because he didn't have no name recognition or nothing. Well, what happened was the press, some of the people came over, and they started dogging this Palladino. And what they did is they were asking his 10-year-old daughter and everything some questions. And there was a guy that was from the New York Post that came in there, and they were harassing the little kids. This is something that I'm absolutely opposed to. Leave the damn kids out of it. But this is the way that politics is run in New York and Chicago, Atlanta, some other basically mob-run cities. And this guy took great offense at it, and he actually faced this guy up, the guy from the New York Post, and told him to leave his kids alone, leave his kids out of it, which I think is very valid, and I think a lot of other people did. And it was a great move by this Carl Palladino. Great move, because it got him a lot of press. And with a guy that doesn't have any name recognition at all, you want people to know your name. I don't care what the reason is. There's a great saying that goes, "It's better to be infamous than unknown." I don't know that I always agree with that. But the fact is, in politics, if you're completely unknown, you're going to lose the race most of the time. So you got to get your name out there somehow. So this was a great play by Carl Palladino. So of course, the media started looking at the polls, and here's Carl Palladino rising up the polls against this Mario Cuomo. And they decide, we got to do something about this. We got to bring this guy back down to earth. And the best way to do it is try to slander him. And when you're a Democrat, you slander people by accusing them of being a homophobe, of being a racist, of being, you got this guy that's Richard Lott that's running for a House rep that they have in the Nazi outfit that was doing a recreation. I wouldn't really advise anybody that's running for office to go posing in any Nazi outfits, but when you're doing a reenactment, come on people, if we were doing a reenactment in Battle Creek here in Michigan of the North and the South, or of somebody doing the Underground Railroad, somebody's going to have to play the South, right? So if you got somebody that's playing the South, and then later on, say I run, and then I go to run for, I do the recreation. I say, hey, look here, George, we need somebody else to do one of the people from the South, a Confederate. And I said, all right, I'll be one of the Confederates.
And then later on, they go, oh, look at the hippie over there. He's pretending like he's from the South. He's for slavery. He's for this and for that. All I was doing a reenactment. Don't you people get what a reenactment is? But this guy, they ran the guy through absolutely through. This is what the Democratic Party is doing to people right now. You can't have that. You know, a lot of people say, look, you have free speech, but you pay for your free speech, and every bit of your free speech has a consequence. Mine does whatever. But is it truly free speech when they're running people out of office? Is it truly free speech when they're telling you that if you run for free speech, we're going to come in your house, we're going to slander you, we're going to make sure you lose your job? Like Rush Limbaugh, you won't be able to own a football team? How far does it go? If I can't, am I going to actually feel like I can actually come out against somebody if I'm going to be punished for it? Is that a legitimate way of responding to somebody's free speech? There's a difference between you saying to me, I say that I might not like gay marriage, and I'll cover that in a minute. But then you turn around and say, you know, I do. But that's fine, and then we can sit down in a chair and we can have a valid discussion about whether or not it's a valid option. That's completely legitimate. I'll give you a seat on my radio program to defend yourself. I'll give you a voice in it even. What I won't stand for is you coming in here and trying to shut Flint Talk Radio down because you don't like what I'm saying. I won't stand for you coming to my job and trying to remove my job. You can't have freedom of speech, people. It's like me saying, oh yeah, we'll allow black people to live in my neighborhood, but you can't have a barbecue pit, you can't have a basketball court or anything else that maybe black people might want. I don't want you speaking antibiotics, I don't like any of that hip hop, but you can live here. You can't see that, people? I mean, that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to set standards like Jim Crow's, like voting laws. Like, you know, find the thing that this person can't do or won't tolerate, and then you make that the standard to give them the right. So you can have the right to freedom of speech, but I'm going to dog you. I'm going to make your life miserable. I'm going to show cameras in your face. We can't have that. You have to always defend freedom of speech. I got some great quotes. A censor is a man who knows more than he thinks you ought to. Our liberty depends on the freedom of the press, and that cannot be limited without being lost. Thomas Jefferson. I'm opposed to any form of tyranny over the minds of men. Now you have to keep in mind, when you talk about Thomas Jefferson, I had a conversation with one of our professors, oh, you can pervert Thomas Jefferson in this way and that. Let me tell you why Thomas Jefferson felt so strongly about it. When he ran against John Adams, he wouldn't run against John Edwards, but he probably would have been glad if he did. When John Edwards ran against Thomas Jefferson, he actually signed a bill from inside Congress because at the time he was running against John Adams, and John Adams was already the president. Signed a bill in 1798 that made it illegal to criticize a government official without backing up one's criticisms in court because Thomas Jefferson called him some names. 25 people were arrested under the new law. How draconian is that? Then, when Thomas Jefferson became the president, he pardoned its victims after he defeated Adams in the 1800 election. Now, so that's a man that knows what it's like to be censored. Even though you might not like what Thomas Jefferson was saying, this is what Thomas Jefferson felt in his heart because he had censorship used against him. This guy, from his position as president, John Adams, and I'll admit I don't know that much about John Adams, but John Adams actually thought that the best way to maintain himself in power, and this is the danger of this kind of censorship, is to censor Thomas Jefferson's attacks on him, making it so that he could only attack him if he took it to court first, and then had the courts decide whether or not it was accurate or not. Can you imagine if we applied that standard now? You wouldn't be able to say anything. What would you 9/11 truthers, what would you be saying? You birthers, what could you say? You people that think it's a conspiracy theory that George Bush neglected the levees. Anything that you guys are thinking of, you wouldn't be able to say or talk about on the internet or anywhere else if John Adams had his way until you went to court to prove that not to prove that after the fact, but to prove in court before you could say it. Before you could attack Barack Obama, before you could attack George Bush liberals, before you could say that it was an unjust war liberals, before you could say that gay marriage is unfair liberals, before you could say anything that you feel strongly about, you'd have to go to court. That's the kind of censorship that John Adams wanted for this world and that Thomas Jefferson defended. Freedom of the press. if it means anything at all, it means the freedom to criticize and oppose. George Orwell. George Orwell knew a thing or two about censorship. For those of you that want to know what George Orwell thought, read 1984 and the world he envisioned with Big Brother, which, by the way, is a fraction of what we're suffering now. All censorship exists to prevent anyone from challenging current conceptions and existing institutions. George Bernard Shaw. That is so important. Think about that. In 1950s, they didn't want you challenging. When I was a young hippie, they didn't want us saying that the establishment was going too far. They didn't want us to say that they were lying about the war in Vietnam. They thought that was being subverted. That was going against the government. I lost that word. Going against the government. And that going against the government was traitorous. What's the word I'm looking for here, Jack? Subversive. Thank you. I lost my mic. Okay, there we go. I lost my mic for a minute. Subversive. Thank you very much. But yeah, they thought it was being subversive, and that it was actually not being a patriot to do this sort of thing. So, you have to protect this freedom of speech. Fear of serious injury cannot alone, and this is the point that the people make with their hate speech. Fear of serious injury alone cannot justify suppression of free speech and assembly. Men in this United States once feared witches and burned women. It is the function of speech to free men from the bondage of irrational fears. That's the function of free speech. It frees you from irrational fears. That was U.S. Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis. These are important words. These are the kind of things that we have to protect. I've said this many, many times, and I'll say it to you again. You have more to fear from the people that censor you. Think of how much power that is. Think if I could tell you, and we had a debate, and I sit you here, and I tell you that I want to defend not censoring. You want to defend censoring. And I tell you that you can't use certain words in this discussion. You can't call me a homophobe. You're a liberal. And you want to have a discussion on my radio program, okay? So I'm setting the terms. I'm going to tell you, you can't come onto my show and use words like homophobia. You can't use homophobic. You can't use racism. You can't use racist. You can't use sexist. I'm limiting every one of your rationales, every one of your reasonings of why you should be able to censor me. And then after I set that standard, then we're supposed to have a discussion after I've decided how you're going to win. That, ladies and gentlemen, is not free speech. Now, speaking of free speech, this Carl Palladino, he makes a statement, and these guys decide they're going to turn him into the world's biggest homophobe. And I want to demonstrate something to you, guys. This is what this guy said was at a meeting with a Jewish congregation. He says, "I just think my children and your children," this is a direct quote from this Carl Palladino, "I think your children, that my children and your children will be much better off and more successful getting married and raising a family." And I think he means a traditional family. "And I don't want them brainwashed into thinking that homosexuality is an equal, valid, and successful option." Equally valid. There's something that we should look at right there. He said, it isn't. That's his final quote. He called himself the religious values candidates, and he said, I will not support immoral legislation. Immoral. Immoral in his eyes. Now, you might not agree with his morality, but he has every right to demonstrate it. You have every right to demonstrate what you think is moral. You have every right to argue that. Do you have the right to push it on me? No, you do not. Do we legislate morality? Bill Maher's famous quote, "You can't legislate morality." Bullshit, Bill Maher. Bullshit. We legislate morality all the time. We legislate morality against sexism. We legislate morality against slavery. We legislate morality when we allowed women's suffrage. We have legislated morality all over this country, from pornography laws to whatever. It doesn't matter. This has been going on in this country, and a lot of them are things that you liberals hang on to, that you don't want people segregating, that you don't want to segregate our schools, that you don't want Jim Crow laws. Those are all moral issues. Those are issues that you brought to the table, that you successfully defended. Those are issues that we need to be able to talk about. And when we're talking about having gay marriage or not having gay marriage, we need to have that discussion. Now, when he's talking about, and I want to do a demonstration here. I call this my Barbie demonstration. And what we're going to do, and you say this is the camera here, John, right? Okay. I want to demonstrate to you why gay marriage is not equal to regular traditional marriage. And I'm going to use Barbie dolls to demonstrate this. So I'm going to try to get you guys to understand this, okay? And I'm going to make a good point here. I'm sure you guys bear with me. Here we have the traditional family, okay? This is Barbie and Joe, G.I. Joe. He serves in the military. He's a really great guy. And Barbie and Joe are the traditional family. Now, I want you people to realize something right here. What you have here is you have a man and a woman. And you have sexual gender diversity. Now, you liberals, you're always talking about how wonderful gender diversity is when it's in my workplace. You're talking about when it's in my legislators. And I agree with you. I want women to be governors. I want women to be senators. I want women to be as powerful as the men are because I'm a feminist at heart. And I believe in that. This is gender diversity in my home. Now, I have tons of literature that's here that talks about fatherless families, where the biological father is not in the family, and how it increased sexual activity, how it leads to drinking problems, drug use, sex abuse, child abuse. I mean, it goes on and on. Psychiatric problems, confused identities, emotional distress, and all kinds of things. Poverty, that all is linked to abusive relationships, all relate to the father not having a home. You know why? Well, let me demonstrate that. This is gay Barbie. Well, actually, we're going to call her Duke, because I see on her little name tag there, it says Duke. This is gay Ken. And I think we all know Ken was gay, right? I mean, that's not breaking news, right? Okay. Now, if say G.I. Joe decides that maybe he's not really feeling it for Barbie anymore, and he kind of decides he wants to do a little backdooring with Ken here, okay? So he sneaks off with Ken, then he decides that, oh, well, you know, despite all the Army training and everything, the don't ask, don't tell was you know, done away with by Mrs. You know, district court judge down in California. So now he's decided he's going to change lanes. So that's well and fine. But you notice there's no gender diversity. You see what's going on here? No gender diversity. So, the little girl grows up, she's got nobody to identify with. Oh, that's not a problem according to everybody else on the planet. That's not a problem at all. But then I'm reading all kinds of literature that tells me that that's not true. Absent mothers can be and gone. New study that's just released, that's from Science Daily, September 29, 2000. And when we look at other mammals, in this study mice, it is early weaning and separation from the mother promotes long-lasting hyperactivity and anxiety. Oddly enough, when we look at some of these studies, guess what we find out? We find out universities don't fund studies to find out what happens if there's an absent mother in the family. Why is that, people? Why did universities study whether or not eating grapes gets rid of foot fungus? And they don't study why a woman's missing from the relationship? If that has an impact on the mothers, we know that it does. It's called cross-gender parenting. There is nothing wrong with Joe and Ken being together. You get that? I'm not being homophobic. I don't care if they're together. They're just missing having the female influence. Now let's say that Joe doesn't change lanes. Let's say that Joe decides he doesn't really care that much for Ken. Ken's hurt. I can see it in his face. But it doesn't really matter. But he decides that he likes Ken. He's going to hang around with Ken. Ken's got a kid by a prior marriage. Woman left, who knows what she did. She's gone. Ken got stuck with a kid. Not stuck with a kid, okay? Like Ken got the kid. That's a great thing. Ken got the kid. Joe's a good guy. Joe decides he's going to help the kid. The kid's a girl. Can the girl identify with either of these people as a role model? I don't care that Ken's got a really pretty pink little vest. They're not going to identify with. Is she going to identify with Joe? I don't think so. Even Joe doesn't think so. Look at Joe. His face says he doesn't think so. He knows that he can't do it. Ken can bake a cake. Ken can wear a dress. Ken can steal Barbie's dress. It doesn't matter. If the same thing happens with Barbie and Duke here. Duke and Barbie look at each other and they say, hey, you know what? We kind of like each other. Let's hang out. Let's rock. And little Barbie, you know, Joe found somebody else. He ran off with the other girl in the other dollhouse. So now she's stuck with Duke. You know, she's a little mad at men right at this point, and she doesn't want anything to do with it. So they raise a family. They got a little boy. How can they raise a little boy where there's any identification? Now you want to try to tell me that Ken wanders by every once in a while, and that's the male influence? That's not the way Barbie's kid identifies with the male. That's not her biological father. She's still identifying with Joe, who ran off with somebody from the Barbie playhouse. That's not going to work. You understand, people? This has nothing to do with whether or not Ken and Duke are gay. It doesn't matter. If these two were straight and trying to raise a family as a friend, just two women that are straight as they can be, it doesn't matter. There's no gender diversity. Do you see that? Nobody to identify. There's a problem with the cross-gender parenting. Look it up. Google it, people. Your professor isn't going to teach you this crap. They don't even want to have a study to tell you whether or not absent mothers are a problem. They don't even want to talk about it because it doesn't go with their ideology. They want to separate from that. Is it because they're gay? You don't need to hate on Duke. Duke isn't nothing. She's a nice girl. I met her. She's fine. I don't really care for her. She joined the U.S. Army. She's serving proudly and helping our country. I don't care. I don't care. But the thing is, when she's with Barbie and they're raising a male child, there's nobody there for her to identify with. Ken wanders in and out of the relationship. That tells the little boy that that's what men do. They just wander in and out of relationships. And then you have the kind of thing that we're having with teenage pregnancies. 70% plus of Hispanic and black families that are having children out of wedlock. $12 billion that we're spending a year on supporting single mothers, single parents. A CNN study. CNN's not exactly, a right-wing organization, guys. All of this, it's got to make you understand. Look, our happy little family here that we moved in, oh, sorry, Ken. Drop Ken. It's okay. Man up, Ken. He's crying. Oh, Jesus. Come on, Ken. Ken. All right, stop. Okay, Ken's okay. Stop crying, Ken. Okay, we got a nice little happy family here. We got straight family, we got gay family. It doesn't really matter, okay, people? It's not about, and that's the important thing. And that's what Carl Palladino was trying to say. It's not equal. Now, let me make another point. If Barbie raises her kid by herself, is it better if Duke helps her out? Hell yes. Hell yes. If Joe decides that Ken and him want to work on trying to raise a kid because Ken just loves a kid, that's fine. That's better than Joe raising it by itself. Two guys trying to do it is better than one. Two girls is better than one. But this is the ideal. This is the best because it has gender diversity. Understand that. It's not about, don't get distracted by your professor because they don't want you to hear this. Don't get distracted by your teacher. Don't get distracted by your media. Don't get distracted by Lady Gaga, who for some reason is testifying in my court. Then it doesn't mean a damn thing to me. Don't get distracted by that. This is what's important. Gender diversity. You're a liberal. If you have a liberal mindset, if you're young, you're probably more liberal. You should believe in this. You should believe that gender diversity is a good thing. Now, all right. Thank you. Thank you, Joe, Barbie, Ken, and Duke. I can never let my grandkids watch a show because they just saw what I did with their dolls. It wasn't that bad, was it, John? I didn't have them humping each other or anything like that, right? Okay, good. It's interesting. Believe it or not, I actually dressed them myself. I can't hear you. Yeah, my kids have a really large box of Barbie's toys. And by the way, I have a young grandson, Ian, and he plays with them himself. And I have no problem with that. I'm not at all homophobic. This issue, I get, it's weird because the weird liberal line is, John, that if you don't go lockstep with every single thing that they believe, that somehow, you're now a conservative right winger. And I can't tell you how many times I've been called this.
But I don't understand why they're called liberals. I mean, they're the most demanding, authoritarian people I've ever met are liberals. I mean, they have a criteria, a checklist. If you vary in any instance, they want to label you the other way.
Absolutely.
They're the rudest and most arrogant people I've ever met.
Well, let's be fair. Not all of them.
Well,
not all of them.
100% of them are very.
Yeah.
The same university you're
Yes, I know. Yeah.
They're very arrogant people. I mean, they are so elitist. I mean, how dare you challenge? They think they got a right to dictate you how you're going to choose for your own self.
Well, the thing you have to understand about them, and by the way, I think they're dead wrong about this, but the thing you have to understand about them is that they think that me or your point of view that's contrary is by nature racist, sexist, homophobic, or whatever. Because I don't believe that it's equal to it. They won't listen to my conversation at all. Because they automatically assume that I'm taking it from a homophobic point of view. That I'm trying to say, and that's why I use that demonstration, is because I'm trying to say that they're somehow inferior. And that's not inferior. It's not inferior at all.
I would have voted for Palladino if I was in the state of New York.
I would vote for Palladino.
I would listen to the context and everything else. I agree with what he said. I mean, another thing is too, I was asked to ask gay people, males or females, if their relationships are equal, why do they have to go to an outside source to have kids created?
Well, that's...
I mean, let's face it, they're protesting and holding up placards saying we're equal rights and all this stuff. Doesn't change the biological fact that two females or two males alone, by themselves, can reproduce.
Absolutely. Mike, there we go. Yeah, I agree with you on that. I mean, but that's taking it from a biological standpoint. I'm really not looking at it from a biological standpoint. I'm trying to get it from the standpoint of, psychologically, that it's not the same for the kid.
I'd say, though, you have to look at biology because basically, okay.
Well, it's hard to ignore. It is.
Well, it's like, okay, a lot of people who want to discredit the religion, they want to discredit any kind of philosophy or theology or whatever. If that's removed, then we're boiling down to the brass nuts, the brass tacks.
No pun intended.
It's biological creatures. So therefore, the whole idea, the whole issue of being polite and extending these rights and all this stuff is kind of moot because if we are just basically animals and nothing more to be expected of us, then why even carry on this dialogue? We're supposed to be nothing more than just biological creatures with nothing expected of us beyond that. If there's something unique about us as being human, then the whole political discourse goes by the wayside and it's just going to be terrifying.
Well, certainly. I mean, I think that you should accept the fact that we are humans, and thank God, because we're a reasoning being, that we can logically assume a lot of things that an animal can't. And that's very necessary. I mean, who amongst the liberal fraction would actually want people to act animalistically? You wouldn't want it. You couldn't possibly. Okay, I want to get something else here. Thanks, John. John, you sounded like God. There was like a lot of reverb. So that was the point of view about gay marriage from God. So those of you that are against it, you just heard from God. I don't know what else to tell you on that one. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about this. This is another thing that got me. Okay, there was a little incident that happened there, and it was in the city of brotherly love in Philadelphia, but it was really strange. You know how often that you guys heard about George Bush getting a shoe thrown at him? Jen, were you aware that Barack Obama got a book thrown at him? You hardly heard this at all.
Well, I heard about it, but it's like, and I heard about it, and some people when Bush had his those shoes thrown at him, the liberal press, you thought it was funny.
And they were encouraging it, actually. And this is something that's been happening a lot lately. I mean, Karl Rove and our own Democratic senators, Carl Levin, actually got a pie thrown at him. And I don't know if you remember, but like a lot of people laughed a lot when Ann Coulter got a pie thrown at her. Now, why a pie?
I guess it's like more innocuous than a baseball bat. But it's like, it's overwhelming. And I can't, in a way, I can't blame people for having anger against certain individuals who vehemently just.
Well, I don't think that's not the right discourse.
No, I'm not saying that, but I can understand why. That's the next thing I was going to add. I mean, it's like,
yeah.
You can't take it. I mean, let's face it. Put a punching bag up in your own house. Put their face on and wail away. Okay. You can't take it.
Here's a question for you, John. What kind of book do you think it was?
I don't know. What was it?
I don't know, but.
It was a thin one. It wasn't that heavy.
Yeah, it was just like a pamphlet or something. I was kind of hoping it was a book on economics, though.
He's definitely needing.
Yeah, but not Keynesian economics. I think we've had enough of that.
General theory is actually a pretty small book. It may have been, but I doubt that. It's not that. It's also very hard to wait.
No. They say that actually some of the other people caught it. I actually tried to find out what kind of book it was. That's the way my mind works, is I actually wanted to know what kind of book. Because, okay, if it would have been a Quran, that would have meant something, right? If it would have been the Bible, that would have meant something, If it would have been a book on economics, it would have meant something to me. No, they actually said that he didn't even notice it. I mean, how detached are you? I guess he had his eyes glued on the teleprompter. If they would have threw a teleprompter at him, he would have. You know, here's what Obama would have been doing as he's watching the teleprompter. And all it says that all.
The way I saw the depiction, when the position of the book then was above his head, so it could have been coming from behind. I don't know exactly where it started or was originating from.
Yeah, that's not the right way to go. It also highlighted, the Philadelphia also was highlighted by a streaker who stripped down his birthday suit and was arrested by police. I just had. No underwear bomber there. But anyway, there was another little thing that I wanted to bring up. Oh, it was lately, you guys have been getting a lot of political news about the campaign financing, and I went into this not too long ago. It's about the Citizens United decision that was made by the Supreme Court. Now, the first thing you need to know about the Citizens United, which I think gets passed by the press every single time, the Citizens United was a group that actually wanted to fund, and they kind of perverted this away from what was really happening. That Citizens United was a group that wanted to fund a movie that was called Hillary. And this was prior to the election. And we talked about this a little bit before. I don't know, so many people probably didn't hear about this. But the movie Hillary was going to be an attack on Hillary done by the Citizen United, which is a front group for the Republicans, sure enough. I mean, it was done much the way Fahrenheit 9/11 was done by Michael Moore liberals. I mean, come on, you guys wanted that out. I don't think there's anything wrong with people putting these kind of movies out. I mean, afterwards they have a movie, one side applauds it, the other side does a fact check about it, and then we have a whole discourse about it. That's fine. That's what you actually want to have. That's freedom of speech in the making. But the perversion that's been happening on the Democratic side now is that they want to act like all the floodgates have been opened up, and suddenly everybody's pumping all kinds of money in. And one of the points that I heard Rush Limbaugh make today, which was actually a pretty valid point, was he was saying that they were accusing the Chamber of Commerce, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is an organization that represents small businesses, and big businesses too, but businesses that want to form in the United States in any fashion or form, or that they wanted, like a political act committee, that lobby for different things that they want, like the NRA does, or like abortion groups do, or anti-abortion groups do, or gay groups do. They all do this. They wanted to have some say about some of the money that's going into creating commerce. That's what's called the Chamber of Commerce. And some of these organizations, as one would expect, are foreign companies that want to build in the United States. Now, you might not think about this, but here in Michigan, we've actually had an increase in manufacturing in the past 2 years. And that's a good thing because we lost a lot of manufacturing jobs. Most of those manufacturing jobs that are being brought in here are actually being brought in here by foreign companies. Now, I don't think they should get special privileges. There's certain aspects of that I'm not too fond of. I don't think that you should give foreign companies an unfair advantage. We want to play on the field. We want us being the Americans. We want to have a fair chance. But if a Honda plant's coming, look, if we got 13% unemployment, if we can drop it down to 10% by bringing in some foreign investment, once again, that's like having people from Indiana come into our country to do tourism, like I was talking about earlier, in the Pure Michigan thing. You want foreign investment. That brings money into your area, whether it's foreign from over there or foreign from here. And a lot of those are things that are being built here, that are being sold here. They're jobs for Americans. That's a good thing. Now, I would rather see American jobs, obviously, but it's not entirely a bad thing. But here's the point that Rush Limbaugh made, which I actually think was a valid point. You've got all this money that's coming in from Barack Obama, who sells bonds, treasury bonds, that he sells to the Chinese and then the Japanese, who own most of our foreign debt, and then he turns around and does what with it? He creates the things, almost $1 trillion the Chinese bought out that actually went to fund like the Recovery Act that he then turned around and said he was creating American jobs with. Why is that any damn different than what the Chamber of Commerce is doing? It isn't. It isn't. You take foreign investment, you try to roll over and create American jobs. People, we work in a global market. NAFTA was created, and I may disagree with NAFTA, but that was created primarily by the Democrats and Bill Clinton once again. Foreign investment is not necessarily a bad thing. We have to have, I don't want to use a cliche line because this is obviously a cliche line, but it's not fair trade, free trade that we should fear, but we have to have fair trade.
It has to be a situation where it works. But I just want to point out something, because you guys are going to hear a lot of this, that there's this unsurly money that's coming into the system, that somehow it's corrupting the system and making it really bad. Well, you know, if it is, then it should show up on the numbers, right? Okay. So I went on a great site, which is I get it, opensecrets.org. And what they do is they track all the money that comes in by looking over the disclosure records that these candidates actually have to fill out where they get money that come in. Now, they're saying that some of the money isn't traceable. But, you know, when our press is running basically running pro Bonero stuff that comes out of CNN, isn't that unpaid ads? If they're doing a positive piece on it, if NPR is doing a positive piece on something, if you know, I heard this piece of crap that was going on NPR this morning that was talking about the Chamber of Commerce and everything, and every time the guy talked about union money, Diane Reed would just sit there and go, you know, well, I don't think that's that big of an effect. And then every time she got any money that was coming from the chamber, where did they get all that money? Those are very biased reportings. And then reports from the left-stream media in favor of the Democrats, that's money that's not being monitored, right? The union send me stuff that comes directly from the union that says that Rick Snyder wants to make it a right-to-work state. That's uncharted money. I mean, that's not money that these guys are claiming, but let me just go over something. This is from opensecrets.org. Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, was basically unopposed. She raised 1.9. I'm going to round these up a little bit, you know, just to the nearest figure. I'll tell you what. I'll go to the third figure. 1.98 million she raised. She spent 2.08 million. Now, I find it interesting that Nancy Pelosi is spending more money than she's raising. That should tell you something about the Speaker of the House, okay? Steny Hoyer, who's a Democrat majority leader, raised 3.88, and he spent 2.53. Now, John Boehner, who's the Republican equivalent, he raised 4.5. So, you know, you got 3.88 versus 4.5. So it's a little bit more, about 30% more, 20% more. It's not that much difference. He spent 3.7. Now, James Clyburn, who is a Democrat majority whip, he raised 2.5. Eric Cantor, who's a Republican whip, he raised 3.5. Harry Reid raised, and this is in the Senate, Harry Reid raised 19 million point one. His counterpart, Mitch McConnell, who is a minority leader, he raised 22 million. Dick Durbin, the majority whip, raised 11. And John Kyle, the Arizona minority whip, he raised 15. So, you know, you're talking about numbers that are very, very close. Maybe 30% in favor of the Republicans. But that always happens, people. Every time you have an election year where one side's in power, the people that get more inspired, that, you know, every time one side's in power, people get disappointed in that side. Like, if the Republicans are in power, the Republicans didn't have as much money last time. Now the Republicans aren't in power, so people pump more money in to try to get the Republicans into power. So don't buy into this whole thing, okay? All right, once again, another hour went by really fast, but I want to end it really quick. Barack Obama, shame on you for appearing in Rolling Stone magazine, and I'm going to tell you why really quick. Because on this page, it defines Dakota Fannon's little sister as a hot little sister, and it goes on to talk about how hot she is. It's got a picture of her, 12 years old, in a wet t-shirt, brushing her teeth. Talk about prostituting, and Barack Obama, shame on you for appearing in a magazine that wants to turn a 12-year-old into a prostitute. Okay, that's it for me. I'm the Hippie Conservative. You've been listening to Third Rail Politics. Thank you guys all once again. Thanks to John Wilson and Steve Myers for being crazy enough to put me on the air. And thank you to Flint Talk Radio, free guerrilla radio.